All right, we have a lot of really good things to discuss today.
We do, and I am excited. Do you want to start off with the required reading for this for
Required
today's
reading.
podcast?
Yeah, we can do that. Let me pull that up if I can. That way we can kind of talk about it side by side. So, you shared this really cool article, which I loved. Um, Basically, throughout the whole article, to speak in behavior analytic terms, I would say that this kind of goes into what we call pairing. Preferred stimuli with, maybe a not so preferred stimulus. But yeah, it was really cool talking about, of course, it's like therapy, like counseling therapy, not necessarily ABA therapy. But it was really cool talking about Naruto in particular, but how we could use basically any sort of learner preference to promote really good outcomes in therapeutic interventions.
Absolutely, and I feel like I always have to say this. To be clear, we are not licensed clinical therapists like that, not marriage and family therapists like that, not child psychologists, psychiatrists, anything like that.
Well, you're
But we
adjacent, so like,
yeah. My fiance is a licensed couples and family marriage therapist and family therapist. But I, in particular, really enjoyed this for a lot of reasons. One, I'm a super big Naruto fan. It's my favorite anime. I have here a kunai from the first Okage. It's actually my earrings as well.
I
And I
love
would
it.
have had my village headband if I could have found it before this recording.
Oh,
But
awesome.
so basically, in this article, it talks about how using not only talking about Naruto or a shared enjoyable anime or book or show, but talking about the themes and using the themes to help individuals through talk therapy. I've had an instance where I had a student who, I was the behavior therapist for, or behavior interventionist, we'll say, for a student, and a different student in the class really liked me and wanted to listen to me and not to his teacher. And he left the room, and I ended up going to meet with him, and I talked to him, and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Why are you so upset?" And he's like, "I don't want to listen to my teacher. I want to listen to you." And I was like, "Well, I'm like Kakashi Sensei, and he's like Aruka Sensei. Aruka Sensei is like the elementary school teacher for Naruto. Kakashi Sensei is like the high school teacher for Naruto." And I was like, "Sometimes you got to listen to Aruka Sensei. Sometimes you got to listen to Kakashi Sensei. I can't be the teacher. I'm not the teacher. But Aruka Sensei absolutely helped Naruto throughout his entire life, just like your teacher now. So you gotta respect us both." Does that make any sense? And he completely understood it. He walked in the door, and as soon as he just like, "Yes, Aruka Sensei," immediately to his teacher. Teacher does not watch Naruto. He had no idea what was happening, but he was
Cool.
more able to follow through after that analogy.
That and that's like such a beautiful example, and like there are different subcultures within culture. And as I was kind of reading through this, I've never seen Naruto, and you and I've had that discussion. But the more I read about, which the author does a really good job of explaining what it is, what the symbolism is with the characters within the anime, all of that. So I had felt like after I looked at the article that I already kind of understood what the anime was about, which is great. So
Hmm.
kudos for that. But as I was like reading through it, I was like, wow, so there's so much relatedness to feeling ostracized and feeling like you're not a part of a larger culture. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, wow, that's kind of how I felt when I wasn't aware I was autistic, and like all these other kids kind of knew what was going on, but I was kind of the weird one, and like I had these own struggles that nobody else could relate to. And so I could think about that for many of the learners I've served, and supported anybody with like a learning disability. I've thought of many different clients from my career when I was consulting, and I thought, man, it's just the imagery, the comparisons, the descriptions of these life circumstances that many people can find relatable. And you know, if you're a part of like the nerd culture, there are so many different branches within nerd culture. So like I'm a Comic-Con branch, but also like a video game branch, and like, you know, other things. You're definitely in the anime branch, the manga branch, all of that. But we all kind of overlap. We all come to Comic-Cons together, and we all have our understandings. Like your group is here, your group. But yeah, I think it's just another measure of cultural humility and cultural awareness. And so I think of this as kind of an ethical obligation. If you have a learner who identifies with this specific form of media, or, you know, some other preferred stimulus, you've kind of got to learn about it.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be as simple as I was working with a kid. He really liked Pokemon. So we had a token board, and each token was a Pokemon badge. So he would go through and earn each Pokemon badge through the day, or through whatever session, or what have you. When he got tired of it, I just went to the next Pokemon region, made new badges for the next region, and it's like, well, you leveled up. So now we have new badges, you know? And it was just a way to kind of get them excited about it. You're making the stimuli already something that they enjoy. In the article, they talk about this thing called chakra, which is kind of like your life energy, or the energy kind of you use for your ninja magic. And he kind of attributed that to your kind of ability to do tasks throughout the day. You know, sometimes you talk about spoons, or maybe your cup being full, or how full is your cup today. Your chakra is kind of the same, and he talked about, you know, some days you might have low chakra days, which chakra doesn't necessarily work like that in the anime,
Right.
but for you know, for the use, it makes sense. You know, you have low chakra days where you maybe are not able to do as much, whereas some days you have high chakra days where you're able to do more, and it really helps people kind of understand their ability, or every day, or their changing ability throughout their life, and give themselves more grace.
Yeah, and everybody has that struggle. You know, we talk about spoons and, you know, filling your cup and everything, and people tend to equate that with disability in particular, which is good. I'm glad that there's awareness and knowledge of it, but at the same time, everyone's baseline is going to vary every single day. Setting events are going to vary every single day. And so, you know, I have that conversation with students all the time. It's like, you know, when we have the goals that are like, oh, it's going to be 80% or higher across 3 or 4 days consecutively, is that actually collecting all of the possible setting events that could make that behavior maybe not always be 80 to 100% every single day? Are you being fair to the environment and the learner in particular? So yeah, I think that the chakra comparison and metaphor was a really beautifully done one. There are so many different contexts that when I was thinking about the the vision of everything with Naruto, I was like, man, this could fit for so many different populations, and I love that. The generality is just really cool, and the author did a great job describing all of that.
Absolutely. Like some of the things, one thing that you just said, I recently came to realize and learn that there's actually no study that suggests that 80% across 3 sessions is sufficient for mastery.
Shocker. Kind of like
So
how 40 hours of ABA therapy a week is the gold standard. Weird.
exactly, and listeners, keep that in mind. Also, like a lot of the individuals in anime, specifically in Naruto, can kind of map on easily to minoritized,
Yes.
or starts with another M,
Secluded, socially
marginalized
stigmatized,
communities,
marginalized, there you go.
especially when it comes to being ostracized. Like, you know, a lot of black people love anime because they a lot of times see themselves in a lot of the characters and how they're treated. You know, Naruto was often, you know, excluded from the rest of everybody else. A lot of black people feel like that. Like they've had that. The Uchiha clan, which was ostracized and literally placed outside of the village, a lot of black people feel like they, empathize with that. And I'm sure a lot of other minoritized and marginalized communities feel similar. So they see themselves in these heroes and they see them go through these journeys of being able to learn how to be accepted, learn how to overcome, to fight through all this struggle. And I just think it's really good. This anime is actually my favorite anime of all time. And I think it has the best first episode of any anime just because of how it hooks you, how it tells a story, how it kind of starts off. And like you damn near want to cry at the end of it just because of the emotional weight, especially throughout the series. There's such an incredible emotional weight. I made my fiance watch it, and I can't tell you the amount of times she cried through it all, just because, and it makes you feel those emotions. And I think that it would be really good for anybody watching it to learn how to tact those emotions as they're feeling it, because I don't think we have, like I said before, a really good educational system for emotional intelligence or just emotional awareness when it comes to what we are feeling ourselves.
No, I definitely think that is lacking, especially in American public education. And the lack of emotional intelligence is very evident in society all around us. And I think that in older generations in particular, not to just like attack boomers or anything, but I definitely see a lack of emotional intelligence. And it's a skill that I think a lot of us, especially as the millennial generation, have had to kind of self identify and self correct. And that kind of sucks. And if we can do anything to kind of change things for the future generations coming in, that way they don't have to do all this work as adults that we could have done early on. Now, I could be speaking to my own experience because my lack of emotional awareness and intelligence also had to do with me not being diagnosed and not getting therapy that I could have very much benefited from. But it seems to be a common thread among our generations. So
Yeah.
there's that.
No, I agree, and I think that it's so funny when I was talking about emotions. Of the a male commented, and it's like, yeah, men are only taught to really be happy, hungry, angry, and frustrated. And I was like, you put hungry in there. It's interesting that
Yeah.
you've been taught that that's an emotion. That's an emotion that you might feel. Whereas, it's like a respondent reflex to, environmental contingencies and the EOs and AOs that you're experiencing. It was just like, man, like, it's especially for men, it's really in the can, the emotional education. But, this article I just felt was, it had been kind of popularized because on the interwebs, people were saying, oh, there's an article showing Naruto helps with emotions or whatever. And, of course, people rarely cite the article. They rarely say exactly what the article said. They kind of just give this general claim, and everybody just happy to see that it's in the literature. But I think that doing a kind of at least a surface dive like this was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's so funny. I never really kind of thought about how we just kind of appropriate, if you will, research that comes out, and we just kind of scratch the surface, but we don't actually give credit to the author. We don't actually dive deep. We don't really give much other than, this thing was published, and that's basically it. I just, wow, it's kind of interesting thinking about that now. I'm going to be pondering that for probably the rest of the day now. Thank you.
Well, with you saying that, now I feel like we have to say this article is called "Using the Manga/Anime Naruto as Graphic Medicine to Engage Clients in Conversational Model Therapy" by Sean Halvock.
Halovic?
Halovic?
Halovic, maybe?
Yeah, Sean Halovic.
Sorry if we butchered the name.
Sorry if we butchered the name, but we
Full disclosure.
published in what
It was
year?
2020.
2020 in the what
Psychotherapy and Counseling Journal
Okay, cool.
is all I'm
Cool.
seeing. But
Just,
I did go ahead and I pre preemptively put the link into the resource spreadsheet. So it's already there. That way I won't forget.
Perfect.
But it is there. So we're definitely giving credit where credit is due.
Exactly. And that term graphic medicine, I think, is really interesting that it used. And
Thank
it
you for
talked
bringing
about,
that up. Yeah.
yeah, it talked about, especially with like boys playing video games while doing therapy. And I was like scrolling, and I've heard this thing called walk and talks a lot, which is where, like, instead of just sitting down face to face, a lot of therapists, especially with boys or males, will do walk and talks where they will walk and have the therapeutic session. Apparently, there's some research that suggests that males feel it's confrontational to talk face to face, so they'll do shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. Yeah, so talking
That's
shoulder to shoulder or
valid.
next to each other is a little bit more acceptable and less anxiety inducing, or maybe confrontation inducing for males, and clearly for other people as well, other genders. So, I just thought that was interesting.
That is cool. And I had thought of the piece about like graphic medicine. I had thought about, what would that mean for me? So like I use all sorts of forms of media. I use all sorts of types of crafting. And so I'm thinking like crafting medicine and like television medicine and all of that. It's a really cool term to put medicine onto something, because in different ways, like it might be healing for us. So I absolutely love that. And as somebody who, will play video games a lot, man, my therapy should have been like that. I probably would have been a lot better off. And, we might be in Discord. I know Discord right now is kind of like but, we might be in Discord while we're playing a game, but we're still having conversation. Like, I've had really good, deep conversations with friends while engaged in video game spaces. And
Same.
But like, I have ADHD too, and so for me, it's like it keeps the serotonin flowing. So it's more preferred.
I agree, and I think that one of the things that we need to do a good job as behavior scientists is really measuring like emotions, I would say the frequency of thoughts, feelings, and urges, like before, during, and after playing video games and engaging in that graphic medicine, and then being able to prescribe doses of that graphic
That's a good
medicine
idea.
to individuals
You should
based
do a
on.
study.
We should. Hey, if we could do a study with video games, that would be great. Are you playing? Speaking of video games, are you playing any games right now?
Not right now, but like, okay, so if we're talking like hobbies, I'm all over the place. And so like right now I just have my consistency with Fallout 76, but this is a long story for another time, but basically I'm now doing sourdough bread and I'm starting to do quilting,
Nice.
which came up so random. Anyway, video games, go.
I just beat Pokemon Leaf Green, so
Oh, wow, okay.
I've moved on to Pokemon Gale of Darkness on the Switch as well. So I didn't get to play that game. It was on the GameCube, but they have it like, on the Switch now. And as a kid, we didn't get to play video games that were one player because my younger brother and I would argue all the time. So all the games had to be multiplayer.
It's
It
amazing.
worked, but now I get to go back and play them.
That's so funny. I was getting ready to say, like, okay, that's one I haven't heard before. I worked at GameStop years ago, and I would hear all sorts of things from parents, like, oh, well, I don't want them to play this because of the violence. Oh, I don't want to have them to play this because of the graphic content or whatever. But I never heard it can't be a single player game. So yeah, I appreciate you backing that up with context. That's so funny. I was an only child, so whatever I wanted to play, I could play. But then if I had like a multiplayer game, I was born in 1984, so I had a Super Nintendo. And for some reason, I went through a phase where I liked Major League Baseball and like the NBA. But it was the mid-90s when all of it was like hyped and everything.
Peak.
And so like I didn't have anybody to play King Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball with or NBA Jam. So like I would just play by myself, and I know it sounds so depressing now, but like I always got to be who I wanted.
There you go. Did you ever like go to any video game like arcades or anything? Were there any around where you lived?
No, I was raised in Southwest Missouri, and there's like not shit. But now I'm kind of like making up for lost time. I'm healing my inner child. We live in a metro area now, and there are probably like 2 or 3 like video game bars here in town. And my spouse and I will go to those occasionally. And at one of them, they have NBA Jam, Tekken Tag Tournament, which is one of my all-time favorites. They have like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which I don't love, but like I respect. I don't love it because I can never win at it. Full disclosure. Tekken I am actually fairly decent at. Don't understand it, but they've got like a bunch of pinball games and stuff like that, and it's really cool. It's like 1 token per play at any game, so you can spend literal hours there for $5 on your games and have drinks. Nice. So yeah, and like VR places are popping up now. That's something we have like a MetaQuest headset, but it kind of gives me migraines. So
yeah. I have one too. I got it because I was like, oh, we're gonna use it. I used it for a bit, and then I'm just like, nah.
Abandoned.
Also, don't have time nowadays. You know what I mean? My gaming needs to be quick, efficient, get through it. I would love to spend more time, but other things.
For sure. If there's something that will truly like come out that will pull me in, then I'll pick up the headset again. Otherwise, unfortunately, it's collecting dust.
Yeah. Same.
I feel bad about it, but And then we do have a Switch, but I got it to play Animal Crossing, and that's basically it.
Well, there's the new Pokopia, which is basically Animal Crossing with a Pokemon skin, and everybody is loving it because it like addressed all the problems that Animal Crossing had. It's like apparently so much better and all this stuff.
We'll see. I'll be the judge of that.
Exactly. It's literally the highest rated Pokemon of all time.
Wow,
it's got like a 98 on Metacritic.
That's saying something, because I remember at GameStop trading in all the like not the Game Boy Advance, not the GameCube, but like the old school square Game Boy cartridges of like red, yellow, blue, gold, and I think there was like silver. I think that was it for the Game Boy Classic. But I even remember trading all those in, and everyone was like, "Oh, these are all so good." And then it just seemed to get better and better. So, like, that's a huge claim there.
Yeah. So, I mean, check it out. I mean, it's basically Animal Crossing with a Pokemon skin with a whole bunch of other stuff. My fiance is addicted, and she just takes breaks to work.
We're all just honestly working so that we can engage in our hobbies, and I've had that realization recently. It's like I love my job, luckily it worked out for me, but at the same time, like, I'm only doing a job so that I can like go buy material to start quilting. Like,
absolutely. Fulfill the response requirement to enjoy your break.
Exactly. It's like, what's the bare minimum I need to survive on? Okay, great. I want to do that so that I can, play my video games and do all the rest of it. But I love that. So I will probably check that out. It kind of gives, what was it, Pokemon Go vibes?
Yeah.
Because I did play that for a while. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I captured this thing, and
everybody did. Everybody was riding around doing crazy stuff, using it for my clients. Like, you don't want to get up? Oh, well, apparently there's a Pidgey over there, so if you wanted to, we could.
It's so great. I had kind of forgotten about it completely. Somewhat unrelated, until we went to Comic-Con a couple of weeks ago, and there was a Pokemon gym set up, and it was just like, come battle me or whatever, and it was like just this guy who you knew just like was super high level or whatever, and he was just challenging people to, I don't remember what it was called, but
people are still into it. It's crazy.
I didn't realize it was still so relevant, and so walking by that guy, I was like, that guy's cool. I just know he's cool, because he's got a Poke Gym set up at a Comic-Con.
Yep.
Just some random dude. So, if anybody's looking for a hobby and they're super into Pokemon Go, tour the Comic-Con circuit and set up a gym, and live your life,
Yep.
I love it. So, do you want to shift over to the less fun initial topic, but coming full circle?
Yeah, we'll find a way to liven it up.
As best
But
as you can.
yeah, so recently, and I have a script, so I'm just gonna read it and stop me at any point
Oh, yeah,
to cut me off.
that
I'm
works.
just gonna say, content warning. We're gonna be talking about conversion therapy, childhood abuse, and suicide. So today, this at this date was the March 31st when I wrote this. The Supreme Court ruled 8-1 that Colorado's ban on conversion therapy for LGBTQ plus youth violates the free speech rights of a Christian counselor. The ruling does not strike down every state ban, but sets a precedent that could unravel protections in more than 20 states. It was also March 31st on that day, which was International Transgender Day of Visibility, an annual day dedicated to celebrating the accomplishments of transgender and gender expansive people while raising awareness of the work still needed to combat discrimination and violence. Now, many people have heard about conversion therapy, but most haven't heard about the efforts to use behavior modification to change childhood gender identity expression. In 1974, Rekers and Lovas performed an experiment with two parents and their child Craig, who was 5 years old. A psychiatric authority said Craig had gender identity problems, and let's be clear, gender nonconformity is not a mental disorder, and this kid was 5. In the clinic, the mother was instructed to selectively attend to masculine, verbal, and play behavior by smiling and complimenting Craig, and ignore feminine behavior by picking up a book to read. In home sessions, they implemented a token economy, timeout procedures, and physical punishment to get Craig's gender identity expression to align with his sex assigned at birth. They called the intervention a success. They said video recordings before and after looked like two different boys, but they did not know the long term effects this treatment would have on Craig. We do now. Later known as Kirk Murphy, he died by suicide at 38. His family believes it was a direct result of the behavior therapy imposed on him as a child. Too many of our trans brothers, sisters, and non binary family members don't get to see old age, and this is exactly how applied behavior analysis can and has caused harm. Murphy's story needs to be told. The Trevor Project's February 2026 research brief found that recent exposure to conversion therapy is associated with higher rates of both suicidal thoughts and suicidal attempts. Among LGBTQ plus youth exposed within the past year, 61% seriously considered suicide and 35% attempted it. For those exposed 5 years or more ago, those numbers were still at 44% and 20%. The harm does not stop when the therapy ends. So that's the history of that. I feel like this is a great opportunity for us to try to measure inner behavior, thoughts and feelings and urges, and try to use the frequency of positive thoughts and feelings and maybe gender affirming thoughts and feelings, whatever gender expression you feel and you believe you are. Then hopefully that could combat the suicidal ideation and attempts. Um, and I always think, one person said this to me, and understanding sexuality and gender expression clicked for me was when somebody said to me, being gay is not a choice. For instance, when did you decide you were straight? And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, I never decided. I just always felt that way. So for gay people, similar experience. And then for gender expression, when did you decide to be a mask presenting male? Never really decided that, and I also have to attribute a lot of the culture, the society that I grew up in that reinforced those stereotypes early on, probably locked that in more than anything else. What do you think?
I have so many thoughts. What do you think? Where do I begin? So, first off, like, I have overwhelming sadness because it pains me to think that somebody in their truest identity is so hated on. And like, that is such a hard reality for someone who is justice minded to have to, like, I know it exists. I'm not naive, but like the reminders that still come hurt no less. And that it's the same feeling that whenever, like parents will tell you, I don't want my kid to do that because it embarrasses me, or I don't want them to like draw attention to us because they're hand flapping or whatever. Like, why would you not want your child to be authentically themselves and be proud of them for who they are? Like, I don't understand that thought. And so, full disclosure, that's my perspective on all of it. And so it's really hard. I'm also not a parent. And I think it's important for me to also acknowledge that. But I've supported so many children at this point that I don't know that that's something that takes me out of the running for having an opinion on it either. I felt the imposter syndrome hardcore in my 20s, because I was walking in and like coaching parents and like kind of going over goals and stuff like that. But there was always that side of me, like, what if they find out I don't have kids? Are they going to think I know less? But now I don't care. I really don't care. So I've gone through that. I also know that there is a huge overlap between the LGBTQIA plus community and autism. And so that is a overlap. I consider it like a Venn diagram, and that overlapping section is growing bigger and bigger. And so as an autistic person who is very proud of being autistic, most of my autistic connections do not identify as cisgender or, like gender conforming or straight, heterosexual, whatever. And so there's so much of a spectrum on gender and, preferences and all of that. And so I think it's just important to kind of mention that overlap as well, especially with, the Rekers and Lovaas article. Now, kind of going back to the Rekers and Lovaas study, I have some intense anger over that because we have tried to... I know of at least one really solid attempt of getting petitions together with tons of people signing it to retract this article because it's still used specifically to justify conversion therapy. Normally I'm the type of person who's like, well, history is history. We need to learn from it, and we need to, kind of know what not to do. And so we need to be very honest and disclose everything we can. But in this case, if it's still being used for harm, I don't want it out there. Basically, Jabba, who published the original Rekers and Lovaas article, which I did share while you were talking about it, and I can share it again. But Jabba, who published this article, put out a statement basically saying, well, we're not going to take it out. We're just going to learn from it. It's like, but you're missing the point. And so that was put out by the current, I don't know if she's still the editor-in-chief, Linda LeBlanc. And so I think it's also important to kind of mention the context of all of that and what's been attempted as far as retracting that to further prevent future harm. But yeah, the conversion therapy thing is just a really hard conversation.
I agree. And I think that both of our stances when it comes to conversion therapy is harm. Conversion therapy is bad and should be banned. But I think that a lot of times I find frustrations with the behavior analytic higher ups, whether it be Java or whomever. They don't often take advice or note or follow APA. APA will do things that are the right ways to do it, and we should follow in their footsteps, especially being a smaller, younger, somewhat version of them. And we don't for whatever reason. And, maybe you don't retract it, but there should be some other thing where it is explicitly stated that this is a harmful procedure not to be utilized anymore. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, they can't even do that. And I feel like a lot of my frustrations with those higher ups lay in their ethics don't vibe with my morals, so I don't see how the Venn diagram is not a circle. So I'm always going to have very deep frustrations and problems with them, which is why I will and always have called myself a behavior scientist.
So as you were kind of talking about this, I was curious if I could first off find that statement for Java. I didn't find it right away, but I did find this article, so I'd rather give airtime to this.
Hmm.
But kind of discussing the weight of harm about the editor's note that LeBlanc, I want to say it was like 2021, 2022, had put out. And so I'm going to actually look at this. I haven't read it yet, but
Hmm.
this is something that I want to kind of go through. So what I can do is I can also link this and the I don't want to give any airtime to Rikers and Lovas, so I'm not going to
Hmm.
put that in the resources. I will put this one in, however. Um,
Yeah, and then I think that I so now kind of pivoting a little bit, but staying right with Rikers and Lovas. One of the things that we've learned recently about Lovas is that he was a Nazi, and
Full
I
on.
mean card carrying, full on.
Hail
Before he came to
Hitler,
the
Nazi.
United States, he was a leader of a youth organization for Nazism, and he said, "Oh, I was forced to do it," but then later documents found
Okay.
out not only was he not forced, his parents were propagandist pushers, and he was basically utilizing his Nazi ideology in behavior analytics spaces. Fortunately, he also coined the term discrete trial training. So every time you do discrete trial training, just know created by a Nazi. So,
I love
maybe
it.
frequency building is what we should move on to instead of discrete child training. I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, look into it. Additionally, doing a little bit more Googling with the other name of
Let's
Rekers,
just.
Rikers.
I say Rikers, but it could be Rekers. I think Rekers is more appropriate because it gives like the
Yeah.
you're a Reker.
So he was putting a whole bunch of anti-gay. He was putting money towards anti-gay agendas and probably anti-trans agendas, and it turns out he tried to hire a Russian male escort.
Shocker.
So the call was coming from inside the house the whole time.
Always.
He
Always.
was just a closeted gay man, causing harm upon his community. He
I
says
am
he's
not gay
not
and never have been.
gay
Okay.
and have never have been. Something that you don't usually have to say
Right?
if you're
Like,
straight.
literally nobody asked.
Um,
But since you
Also,
went there,
like he he says that he just like I read parts of it. He said that he just hired a guy to help him move, but you hired it from a Russian male escort service, which you only know if that exists if you're either trying to get a job as one of them or you're trying to
right.
hire one of them. Or like that's the only way I would know. Like I don't know the escort services that exist because I'm not trying to hire.
Same. Um, so first off, it's wild to me. This guy's still alive.
I don't know. We
I
have to
guess
do
we should
that.
Google that.
I hope he's in the depths of hell where he belongs, but
Like, I don't know if there is a hell, but I hope there would be for somebody like
yeah, if
this.
there is, I mean,
Like,
yeah.
okay, let's do it. But yeah, if this guy's still alive, I'm talking directly to you. I never look at the camera. I'm talking directly to you. You suck. Um, but this is so interesting. So this comes like kind of full circle for me. So like one of my deep dive topics is cults. And I'm
Hmm.
like obsessed with cults, and not in a like good way, like I'm gonna go start a cult and I love cult leaders or anything, but like I'm so intrigued by what a cult is, how they recruit, how they continue to maintain their status, and the implosion of the cult that inevitably seems to happen. And I promise this is going somewhere. So
Hmm.
Rekers, as we've decided to start naming him, was a Baptist minister, and I didn't realize he co-founded the Family Research Council. And so if you're also into cults, you know that Josh Duggar of the 21 Kids and Counting franchise, the one who is currently serving time in a Fayetteville, Arkansas federal detention center for child pornography charges, worked for the Family Research Council during the Ashley Madison scandal, where he was ousted as being a member on it and actively meeting up with, I think he actually met up with sex worker industry employees. So, like, women who were featured on sex industry films. And because Danica Dillon was one of them that came out and was like, here are my stories. This guy was nuts. All this stuff. And, you know, I've been sipping this tea for years. And so the fact that they're connected is wild to me. So I just learned this as I'm skimming through this as you were discussing all of that. So now I'm having like a mind blown moment.
And to be clear, legal, safe sex work is work. You know what I mean? That's fine.
Legalize
that's okay. Yeah, legalize
regulate
it. Go do your thing. Regulate
please.
it. Do your thing. What have you? Be safe.
Keep people
safe. You know
safe.
what I mean? Two consenting adults. Thumbs up. Great.
Yes.
We love that. Other stuff, like everything that came before that, bad, boo. And it turns out according to Wikipedia, old boy Rekers is still alive. 77 years old.
Once again, you suck. I hope you're listening because you suck.
And you know what? It seems evil never dies. You know what I mean? It really doesn't. It seems like sometimes just being an evil POS is the best way to stay alive. Who needs healthcare when you have villainry and evil?
I guess. Maybe there's truth to the whole selling your soul philosophy of the Illuminati. Maybe there's something to this because
the devil is clearly winning. Because I don't know who's going against them. Because it must be us, and we enjoy. Hopefully, you enjoy our podcast.
I mean, how old is this guy?
He's 77 now.
77? Oh God, he's not even like Trump's age. Ew. Why? Okay, so I want to also like revisit that point that you had made where, you know, sex work is valid work and all that sort of stuff. The problem that I have with all of it is when someone tries to like ban certain things, not regulate certain things, and then they come to find out they're guilty of the thing they tried to ban the whole time. That hypocrisy blows my mind up every single time. It never surprises me.
Same. And it's a result of the culture we live in with the quote unquote traditional values that really result in these Hippocratic behavior that I think really are harmful to the society, especially when it comes to women's bodily autonomy. First of all, men, you don't get a vote. That's what I say. We don't get a vote.
Agrees.
We don't get a vote. Secondly,
or you shouldn't.
Yeah. Secondly, there is no state in the United States where a man's body is regulated. Only women.
Why would we do that? That doesn't make sense. Why would we regulate men's bodies?
I mean, if the society were the same except for men had the babies, things. I just want to peek and see what that looks like.
So much would be different.
Yeah. It's just...
I have this conversation all the time with my spouse. 100%, like, I feel like y'all have been in the house with us when we've had this discussion because we literally have this discussion, like, constantly. I just basically got a diagnosis. It's not endometriosis. So endometriosis is all over your body, but this is simply focused on the uterus. And I want to say it's no. Someone out there, if they're listening and they know, is probably, like, in pain right now. They're like, it's this! Adenomyosis or some, I don't remember. But anyway, and I'm basically like going through the internet, which is probably a mistake because I need to wait on a referral to, you know, get everything. I've already been through multiple procedures, by the way. Nothing seems to help. And so I'm at the point where I'm like, can I just get a hysterectomy? you can't just like go in and ask for stuff like that. Like they'll put you through hoops. They'll, require all these different things. I'm sure this is something that many other women in particular have experienced, especially with medical gaslighting. But basically, I'm looking up the options and it's like, well, you can continue to take over-the-counter pain relievers. Doesn't work. You can use heating pads. Helps, but doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah.
Or you can get a hysterectomy. And it's like, well, let's just take a gamble. Is that going to be on the table this time? Or am I just going to be told to take Advil or Tylenol? And actually take Tylenol because Advil hurts your liver. Mm-hmm. But Tylenol doesn't do shit for me. So, like, I guess I'll hurt my liver because I don't know what else to do. Being a woman sucks.
Yep. I'm so sorry. It sucks.
I don't know how we got here, sorry. That's like a current rant of mine though. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like my spouse and I are always like, well, you know what? If men were affected by this, it would have already been addressed. We would have, like, we talk about that with mammograms. Mm-hmm. Like, if y'all had to put the testes in one of those, like, things and crush them, guess what? That would be changed real fast. Yeah. But no, we get to still go in, get steel plates, just right in and twist it. Okay, now don't breathe. Do that for, like, a minute. Okay. Like, come on.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like it's so important to have more women who become researchers, physicians, scientists, because I think I saw something that they were trying to find a way, or a woman scientist was finding a way to do mammograms where you just like go and put your breast in water or something like that, and then
I would rather do that.
Similar thing. So
Good
I mean,
God.
there's like, and okay, so I don't know why my TikTok's at me here, but you may have seen it. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like two women, and they're like POV. You going to your first time at the gynecologist, and they have this like clamp. And okay, let's just get in there, and then they put their whole hand in
It's
there.
so true. It's so true.
They were like just saying, "Oh, it's really hairy down here. Oh, it stinks." Like, just like all these comments, and I find it hilarious because I'm not a woman. I've never had that experience, but I just love that, like, that humor that often is like, well, it's not ladylike or whatever. It's like, this is I think it's just good humor because it shows like your experience, and hopefully it shows enough people the experience so that they try to fight against having that poor medical experiences, because poor medical experiences result in
trauma,
people not going to the doctor. Like, I've had some experiences with medical racism when it comes to my dentists, and like they'll be like, oh, you don't need Novocaine or any type of thing to make you not feel harm, because black people don't feel harm, of course. So like, I'd be like,
who says
can
that?
You, like, well, they didn't say it specifically, you know what I mean?
But like,
it's like they don't numb you up. So I had to ask, like, could you please like numb me up? I was like, oh yeah, here's a topical. It's like, okay, yeah, not just the topical, the actual shot, please, to actually when you're drilling, so I don't feel so bad or experience so much pain. So those things, you know what I mean, prevent people from going to the dentist in the future. I just came from the dentist today, and I had a great experience because I really enjoy these dental professionals.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, but knowing all of that is also so helpful. So when you do find a supportive medical professional in whatever realm, you can convey that and hopefully create a better safe space. Like, I go in full honesty now, and I'm like, I have my headphones, I have my fidgets or whatever, and if it's somebody brand new, I say, I'm autistic, can you please explain things to me and really break them down, do step by step, don't do multiple things at once, because I'm already kind of like heightened alert, and then I've had a lot of trauma history, and so like the equivalent for women, I think, as you were describing, like the Novocaine and topical, which is awful, by the way, so sorry about that. That is just, and dental pain is not pleasant either. But like the women's equivalent, if you've ever had a uterine biopsy, like, you might get a topical, you might not. Like, I had a provider go in and just raw dog that, and by the way, that is a thing. Go in and raw dog it, and was just like, didn't prepare me for it, anything. And so guess what? I didn't go to the gynecologist for years after that because I was terrified. It was the worst pain of my life. And then it was like, oh, well, you might have a little bleeding afterward, and you can take Tylenol for it. And it's like, But what about like in the future when I have to do this again? And the next time I went in and advocated and I said, you will put some sort of topical so that I don't have to feel that pain again. And, I fought them until I got it. And the
There you
same thing,
go.
I use nitrous oxide at the dentist because, like, I'm not going to go in to a filling or any sort of aversive procedure without that now
Yeah.
because I know I don't have to.
Yeah. Good.
God, ugh. The lack of
Yeah.
empathy on medical providers is just so gross. Dentists,
I, some of it's like definitely their fault, but also it's like the training because there's a
yeah.
lot of like training that has gone on, especially for medical professionals who went to school a long time ago. They definitely
Gosh,
received
yes.
a different set of educational supplements and materials that told them different things. And you go through school usually believing what you're learning, and there's a really important. It's really important for people who go through graduate programs, I especially feel, to become critical of what they're reading, learning, and seeing, to really understand, like, okay, we're practicing medicine, we're practicing behavior analysis, we're practicing XYZ. So when you're reading an article, yes, the article is saying what it's saying, but also critique it, also think it through,
Yeah.
also see that we still have ways to go. So we really have to understand that this is just where we are now and our understanding and level now. And with additional information and data, we can have different understandings.
I think we talked about that on a previous
The
piece, like
lost episode.
especially. Yeah, well, I don't think it was. I felt like it was the one before that, but I could be totally
Okay.
off. But we have talked about like critically analyzing ABA as a field in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and that absolutely, and that's the thing is. If you don't stay in continuing education, and I'm not just talking like go to conferences and space out, like actually go and do workshops, actually go and immerse yourself in the material and continue to actually look at research that's coming out, you shouldn't have that problem. But there are definitely going to be providers in the bunch of medical providers, whereas also an ABA who don't actually take that seriously. But that's why it's there. Now, does it always do the sufficient job of making sure that people are keeping up with current standards? No.
Mm-hmm.
But, how do you do that unless you force it on somebody? Like, you can't force someone to learn. You can't force someone
Exactly.
to be engaged with the material.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a bummer.
It's tough, but I mean, I think that one of the cool things is being the educator like we are, and having the opportunity to impart knowledge that we didn't get to have, that we've gained in the time since we got our degrees. Because like I know I'm still constantly learning, and I'm looking back at where I was during my PhD program even, and I'm like, wow, like you barely knew anything. Like getting that PhD is really just the beginning. And people like I really advocate for people to get their PhDs, but I've learned that I need to be more specific and precise, because a lot of people just want a PhD, but it's like, well, in what? Why? Learning what? Like you really need to be intentional, because it's not just about having the PhD. It's about deciding that you're going to pursue knowledge for not only that amount of time, but really for the rest of your life. And you're going to really dive deep into that. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to go get my PhD. And it's like, that's not it at all.
No. And it's way too expensive in America to go do that just for the hell of it, to
And
be
even if
entirely
you're,
candid.
yeah, and even if you're getting, paid, or it's not going to cost you, the emotional cost,
God, yeah.
is intense.
Yeah, and I think that student labor is probably the most exploited labor that we don't talk about as far as the working capitalist system. Um, Universities, certain programs that you might work with on site, everybody loves to exploit student labor. and it comes at a huge cost. Like, especially if you want to go into academia or if you want to go into teaching. And that was one thing that I learned in my doctorate program was, man, I've just got to hustle, because otherwise I'm not going to be ahead of my competitors to get a teaching job. And I want to make sure that I'm marketable. And so I was hustling, adjuncting at 2 different schools at any given time, working on my doctorate, working 40 plus hours in a clinic setting, specialized school with very, very intense, harmful behavior. I look back and I'm like, no wonder I crashed once I finished my doctorate. And that was when I learned I was autistic, really, because I was just in survival mode for so long. And like, part of that was because I was preyed upon. And it's like, oh, well, we really need someone to teach this class. I mean, you're getting your doctorate. That'll get you a foot in the door. But I was paid like so criminally low, it wasn't worth the cost. Now, luckily, I loved teaching, but so it worked out. But my God, you know, that's how burnout happens, folks.
Exactly. I just did my taxes and I saw my money that I was making last year when I was a graduate student, PhD, getting paid, whatever, blah, 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 versus when I became a faculty researcher. And oh my God, I'm getting paid 3 to 4 times as much. And I literally, luckily, I was in rural Pennsylvania at the time when I was doing my PhD, so I could afford to live. But if I was being paid that amount here in California, I literally wouldn't be able to afford to live. I was living at or below the poverty line. Like, that's just like legit. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So
Real talk. And to be fair, because you and I are both in education, we're still not paid probably what what our worth is, because education is not a prioritized discipline in the United States, and that's where we are.
More deprioritized with the current administration and what they're doing and trying to get funds moved over to
delegitimize professional disciplines, and
that too.
We are kind of affected, but not really. We're so niche as like ABA research professors that I think we're kind of safe. That's one good thing, but
yeah, the insurance, but they'll come for us. You know what I mean? We're on the chopping block. I was looking at, they were like talking about the 10 most unhappy professions or whatever. Like number 10 was some type of researcher, like academic researcher. And then number 1 was educator. So
that really hurts.
We're filling in, you know, the top and the bottom of that 10 right there.
You don't do it because of the money. You do it because you want to, which is true, I think, for both you and I. I'll speak for you on that probably. But this is what I wanted to do ever since I was in college. And I was like, man, you know, I never wanted to be like a high school teacher, but once I started seeing professors, I was like, I want to do that. And then so the seed was planted. And honestly, I'm super happy with that decision, but like, I'm not rolling in dough, folks. It's not it.
And a lot of people that do roll in dough, if they're professors, what they do is they have side gigs. They go into the private sector in different ways and forms, and that supplements their money. So it's like, oh, I can pay for my living situation with my job as a professor, and then the rest of the money is my play money, my actual or invest money, you know, and never touch it and live a life. I don't know what people, you know, just sit around like a dragon on gold do with their lives, but whatever.
Dragon on gold. I think of Scrooge McDuck swimming in the gold pieces.
Yep.
Like the diving board. It's like, that would hurt, sir. What are you doing? I remember as a kid. Yeah, I remember as a kid, I would like, wouldn't that hurt? Like, but no one asked that question, I guess, so whatever. No. But yeah, I don't know what people do. And that's the thing. Like, you hit a certain point of wealth where you literally can't do anything more with your money. Like, you just have such an excess amount of money that it doesn't do you any good, but to maybe give it back. Jeff Bezos, I'm looking at you.
I think that there should be a a diagnosis for that. And the problem with that also is like it gives them a reason to get off the hook for their
Yeah,
problematic behavior, but
for
it also
sure.
describes the inevitable result of amassing and accumulating such a large amount of wealth that you no longer are able to relate or respond to other individuals suffering or harm in the same way. The whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps, which was like literally from a physics textbook talking about how it's physically impossible, and then it was picked up to use as a social condition metaphor for picking it. But also like people aren't born with bootstraps, especially those who are minoritized individuals and marginalized individuals. Anyways, I'm getting off track. What I'm trying to say is there should be like a diagnosis to understand that once you become that wealthy, you no longer are a person in the same way that we are. And you're not able to relate. You don't have the same empathy or sympathy. You shouldn't be anywhere near making or influencing the regulation of laws or anything like that, because you just don't have the ability to empathize or sympathize with other individuals in the same manner. And yeah, you just go to Mars. Be, you know,
Yeah, go off. I don't care.
yeah.
Leave. Just get out of here. And that's the unfortunate truth. Like the more money you have, the more influence you have, and the more detached you also are from like others in society who actually help boost you to that point, and that you're standing on top of to be where you are. And that it's so exploitive. And like the same thing happens at university programs too. And so like when we talk about teaching, if you have professors who are making good money, not only is it like a side hustle type situation, but there can also be certain teaching institutions. I'm thinking like Ivy League type situations where people are paid a significantly larger amount of money, but also the exploiting of the students who come in at these astronomical rates, to get the same education you could get somewhere else at a public school and not have to pay as much. Is just the education system. I feel like I've already said this at this point in the recording. Maybe it was before we started recording, but like burn it all down and start over, because like I'm over
Definitely.
it. I don't know how to
Definitely.
fix it.
Yeah, no,
Just
I'm
get
reading
through it.
actually. Time for the book talk.
Book
Um,
talk.
I'm reading The Teaching Gap, and it's an amazing book that talks about the different ways that teaching occurs in America, Germany, and Japan.
Ooh,
And one of
that's
the big
cool.
things is like a lot of the reform efforts in the United States, they don't focus on actually improving the education, like the actual teaching. It's all this other stuff. And also every time like we see different things that are done in different places, we say, oh, we'll just take that one thing, but it's a whole system of
Yeah.
education that's causing the issues. And if you just implement one change, it's not sufficient to make the desirable outcomes to occur. So it needs a whole rehaul, like you said, burn it down, build it back up. And we have the science; we know it works. It's not like we
Yeah.
can't do it. It's just that we refuse not to. And I believe that's to have a less educated society that is more likely to go into the service industry and into the army. But what do I know?
I was
I'm
gonna
just
say, if you weren't gonna throw in the military, I was gonna say, because that's how we get our young people to go into the military, as we exploit them and we make them feel like they don't have any other choice or hope of a future unless they go into the military.
exactly.
Or prison systems. Like that's
Yeah,
what the rich
that too.
basically see
How
people.
did I
It's like
forget that?
you're either going to go into the prison system, you're either going to go into the military, or you might be successful. We'll see.
Yeah,
But if you're poor to start
or
with, good luck.
service industry. You know what I mean? Because we
Yeah.
need people in the service industry, which there's nothing
We
wrong with that.
need we need
But
people to pull themselves up by those bootstraps is what we need.
exactly, exactly. So I mean, on that note, I feel comfortable saying this was The Learner is Always Right. Like, comment, subscribe, hype the video, reply to a comment, put a comment. Thank you very much.